Welcome to Inspirational Leadership. I'm your host, Kristen Harcourt, and we have an amazing guest and a special episode. Today, I'm going to be speaking with the lovely Jackye Clayton, and special episode because we just got back from Workhuman, an amazing time last week, and I wanted to be able to do a recap because there's so much great learning and goodness and community and all the good things that happen at Workhuman. So we're going to do a recap. Hello, Jackye.
Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. And before we get into it, I want to just do a quick little intro so everyone who doesn't already know knows all about you, my lovely friend. Jackye Clayton is a strategic voice at the intersection of HR technology, AI, and talent innovation. As founder of People Puzzles, she helps companies bridge the trust gap in HR tech, translating complex innovations into human first, credible solutions. Known for her dynamic presence as a LinkedIn influencer, sought after speaker, and associate editor at HR Gazette, Jackye's approach blends bold insights with authentic connection, empowering leaders to drive strategic, sustainable change in the workplace.
I'm going to put that on my mirror. That just sounds, she sounds great.
I mean, yes, she does. And I can attest that you are great. So I'm super excited to be able to have this conversation with you and get to see you again. It always
Yes,
feeds my soul and my heart when I get to spend time with you, Jackye.
yes, same. I look forward to seeing you at Workhuman, which is like
Yes.
so great.
Yes.
Here
Yes.
in the
So,
Gaylord Rockies.
right. Yeah. So we were in Denver. This year was Denver, Colorado. I've been going since 2015, off and on, pandemic and things like that. What was the first year you went, Jackye?
This is my eighth Workhuman. So it was
Wow.
Michelle Obama's. And
Yes.
very specifically, I remember
Yes.
William Tincup because I was at Recruiting Daily and he said,
Yes.
would you like to go? And I was like, on my birthday. My birthday's May 30th. And so, May is the month. And I was like, absolutely not. And he was like, it's Michelle Obama. I was like, get out of my way. I have to go to work. And I've been going ever since.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. So so we're going to talk around some of the themes, some of the, speakers, highlights, all of that kind of stuff. If you were to use a couple of sentences to just describe the flavor of Workhuman this year, how would you describe it?
So I would say intentional recognition enhanced by AI.
Yeah.
So I think I would say human intelligence enhanced by artificial intelligence
Yeah.
seemed to be the theme of how we can bring all of that together.
Yes. Yes.
And also, there was a lot of like strategic leadership of how we're going to be able to move forward. And I think like the elephant in the room was at least alluded to of people wondering what changes we need to anticipate. And you can see it in people's faces where they're like, because to be fair, Workhuman historically has been on the cutting edge of the
Hmm.
future of work, and they go for it, whatever
Yeah.
the most recent thing. But as we all know,
Yeah.
it's like I have my uncertainty era, but I think everybody's part of my uncertainty era now because we're all like, I don't know.
Yes.
What do you think? Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree completely. I think like the AI conversation's been happening the last couple of conferences. It felt like the last year's conference was still trying to get us engaged. Like Brene was there trying to convince us, like, listen, like we need to get on this bus and we need to be really part of advocating and be the ones that are helping to bring this forward. Whereas now this year it was more like, yeah, we get it. We all know that AI is not going anywhere. We're invested. What does that look like to be able to use it in an effective way? And I was really blown away by a stat that Eric Mosley gave, which he said 80% of AI projects fail in large organizations, wasting billions of dollars.
Oh, isn't
Right?
that amazing? Like,
Right?
and there, that was just amazing. And then you think about all of those articles. Do you remember when he had a moment where he's showing the covers of all of the newspaper headlines. And there's just so much noise and the confusion. And you think somebody, and then you read that 80%,
Yeah,
Kristen, that's everybody.
right,
That's, as we say in Texas,
right,
everybody.
right.
Once you get to those numbers,
Right. Right. So it feels like we need to like it's not going anywhere, but we also have to be very intentional about how it's being used, asking more questions. I really like not to skip over, we're going to get to him eventually as well, but I like what I believe was Adam Grant that was talking about several around. We need to be creating more hackathons and giving people
yes,
opportunities to experiment and to explore and let your employees play with the different stuff. And another underlying theme I kept on hearing around the data when it comes to ethics for sure, but also we need to make sure that we're getting enough data, that we're getting the right data, that we're aggregating the data so that the narrative that the data is telling us is accurate, which I also really love. Again, like you said, Workhuman has always been very much a trailblazer with what they did with recognition, but now it feels they're being a trailblazer with they've got all of this data. When clients are using the tool, there's so much awesome information that it's being that's being generated. Now they're really creating with the what did they call it? I wrote this down. The human intelligence. Yes, I think you said that.
mhm,
With the
yeah,
human intelligence, how they're able now to be able to pull different data and be able to take it down like multiple levels, right? Like, okay, we're not only going to look at recognition, but how can we take this information and all of this stuff and be able to analyze it and be able to then take that to look at if we have projects and we have a team, who are the teams that are going to have the right behaviors that are going to align well with this team because we already have all of those recognition moments where we
right.
see these particular behaviors that stand out for this individual. So I just love the potential of how you can continue to just take this data, but be able to use it in a very intentional way to make super strong talent management decisions.
Yes. And I'd like to say I got an opportunity to meet Dr. Isha Bakaria.
Mm,
She's there. I think her official title is Senior People Analytics Consultant
yeah,
at Workhuman.
yeah,
And one of the things that they were talking about was just that, was within the recognition and how you can use that data in advance to see what things were happening, how to advocate, in advance through AI. And I really liked that it was human supported. I mean, they were very intentional of saying AI supported rather they're AI enhanced. I'm sorry, that was the
yeah,
word.
yeah.
AI enhanced recognition systems to encourage not just positive but preventative behaviors
Mm-hmm,
was something that
mm-hmm,
we got a chance to talk about.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I still thought it was interesting that I mean, you're right. It feels like we've been talking about it forever. And people feel the nudge to do something because it's already infiltrating. And so at least people are keeping those things in mind, but we do have to take more of that data and be able to be very specific about what we're looking at. I still feel like there is confusion in the HR space on where to go. There's just a lot of
Right,
noise and a lot
right.
of places. And um, but also making it broader and seeing that's the other part I think that we see is just the relationship, interdepartmental relationships now that we have all this data on how we can work
Mm-hmm,
together to have
mm-hmm.
better workplaces.
Right. It's going to require a lot of collaboration, and we want to make sure anytime we're bringing in this tech that HR is at the table because they're also looking at things in terms of design and inclusivity. And are we making sure that we're taking all of those factors into consideration? There was a great, I want to jump ahead to her because I think this is a great conversation with the AI piece that I really loved the thoughts that she was giving, and I want to make sure that I give her proper credit. Dr. Khalifa Oliver.
Yes,
She had really great stuff to talk about. You know, like simple, but you need to keep hearing that, right? Like one of the things that she said I really appreciated is yes, you need to focus on data insights, but you also have to ensure employee satisfaction and success remain at the heart of your initiatives, right?
that's
It's
right.
almost like sometimes that gets like we lose track of that piece. Like we need to make sure that we're doing things to enhance And she had a lot around like reminding us this is about enhancing creating efficiency so people can focus on the big tasks and have time to think. I love that, to have time to think because it's really about the tech serving the employees. And I think, I mean, how many people I talk about that with so many of my leaders, like they need more white space. They're going to meeting
Right.
after meeting after meeting. They can't pull themselves and zoom out and have that time for strategy and thinking. And I love where she's like, yeah, this is where AI comes in. It's actually it's enhancing your ability to now be able to go do those white space tasks. And I think it's important that we're asking more questions. Is it being used to serve us in that way?
Yes, but and I also feel her book. I got a chance to sit with her. We got
Yeah.
to like hang out for a minute, and it was so funny. She was someone else. Like I was so excited to meet, and
Yeah.
then I was like, "Am I overwhelming?" Because I was kind of like one of those things where it's like, "Hey," because she was the author. I think I want to get it right. It's like I think I love my job.
Yes, that's right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I love that premise, of um, you know, finding the work that you love. And what is interesting is like with that, it isn't like AI is not going to be able to do that, right? It's not going to be able to make it more, it can free up some space, but hopefully people know that you have to make it more people centered. And so that I think was great overall too, just getting that feeling where it's like you were saying, you can hear all the places where humans and people are going to be a
Yeah.
part of it, and you're like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
feel safe. I felt my shoulders went down a little bit.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like you would connect with this one too. She kind of just threw this in near the end of her presentation that I heard her do, because you come from this background as well in terms of customer experience and HR tech. She said also from HR's perspective, go talk to your customer experience people who are
Yes,
already 5 steps ahead of you and ask
right.
them how they're leveraging AI and then bring it over there because they will already be so much more familiarized of ways to be able to be leveraging it.
She gets the snaps.
Yes.
That is everything.
Yeah. Right?
And good notes, because like I feel like that's one of the biggest things that we've been seeing, and seeing as we catch up. That's what makes me so afraid, just in the overall, what are we going to do this year and how is this going to affect us? And sorry, there's a fly. If it looks like I'm trying to hit myself in the face, I promise I'm not. It might look like it, but it is making sure. Oh no, now I lost my train of thought. That fly got me. I really thought and it was brilliant.
It's going to come back. We'll leave space for it
Ah,
to continue to come back. But it's a great book, and thank you for sharing more details around the book because I'm going to make sure I have show notes with all of these wonderful books that
yes.
will be included. And the full name is I Think I Love My Job: Humanizing Work Through Data and People-Centered Design. And I thought she did a fabulous job, and I'm sure her book is going to go even deeper on everything. Tell me about Adam Grant. What jumped out at you with Adam Grant?
Oh, I love Adam Grant, first of all, that piece.
Yeah.
And when I look back at my notes, seeing what he did, hold on, because I have it, I want to make sure I have my tablet went back to sleep. One of the things that, first of all, he's just so real, right?
Yeah.
Every time he comes, it's like he really engages. He's one of those people that I've always wanted to meet,
Yes.
um, and be able to spend time. But this is like talking more about the digital revolution, and having those chances to like outsmart the robot. And I loved it. It was like testing and putting those things together, I thought was really interesting. But then I always feel like with Adam, it felt like I'm looking at these notes about the giver taker versus disagreeable piece, and
Mm-hmm.
finding the diamonds in the rough. I find it really
Mm-hmm.
interesting because you see people, Workhuman still is looking at DEIB, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I love the way that it was like that's a DEIB statement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And one of the things that I learned that it will probably change the way I do business that he said was every interview should have a do-over.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so great. For
Mm-hmm.
years, I've always said, give people all of the information that they need to be their best.
Yeah.
But the thought of doing a do-over, I thought was really great. He also talked about the culture carriers. Those were
Mm-hmm.
different things that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
usually I record, I film. I was like, wait a minute, no, I have to put all this down because that really really helped with me. And it was like, are you willing to tell the truth? And then understanding the giver taker versus agreeable,
Yeah.
disagreeable
Yeah.
um piece. And we'll make it make sense because I know that we can find it doesn't make sense when I'm just saying it. You'll have to, this is a visual for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I thought Adam, so the book that he was talking a lot about, which I haven't read and it's now on my book list, which is Hidden Potential. And I usually love
Yes.
all of his books. So I'm going to be checking it out. I also like what you said about the interview process and where he was really focused on you should be really looking at skills in the interview process. It shouldn't be talking about your skills. It should be giving them an opportunity to be able to show you their skills, which I think makes so much sense because a lot of people don't feel comfortable selling themselves and acting like this persona in the interview. And that's not what you
Right.
actually care about anyways. You want to
Right.
know, do they have the skill set to be able to do that effectively? So I like that. The disagreeable people, I remember that too. And he brought it to his giver and takers and said, we still want to have the disagreeable, but still givers. And that if we have the disagreeable, we want to give them an opportunity to use their voice, but that we have to make sure there's the psychological safety and trust in service of them doing it in a way that's going to be effective. I also love this piece, which I talk about for a lot of my leaners, except especially the senior executives, and the way he actually even put it into application as well, which is around not taking yourself so seriously and sharing more of your shortcomings. I think that a lot of times leaders are like, oh, I'm the leader. I'm supposed to always have all the answers. I'm not valuable. And to the point that his students came to him and said, oh, how are you doing that in class? Like, how are
Right.
you making sure? And then it was this, they had this cute little thing where a whole bunch of the teachers, if you've ever listened to late night, where late night celebrities on late night read mean tweets, they
Yes.
were doing that and they were reading mean feedback that they've gotten from people. And he said, like, it made him so much more relatable to his students. Cause, like, of course, like, not everybody's gonna like you. And it was like some of the things people said, I'm like, what does that like that doesn't
Hilarious.
even make sense. It was hilarious.
My favorite was the woman from
Right.
Australia, and
Yeah,
she
it's
was like,
like
I'm
from
from Indiana or
Alabama.
whatever. Right, Alabama. I was like, oh my gosh.
So
That was really
funny. They're saying like you like why did you come from Australia? And she's like, I didn't actually come from Australia. I'm from Alabama.
right.
But it was
Right.
just like it just created some connection and humility because there isn't supposed to be this you get to be the senior executive and all of a sudden you're like you're completely perfect and don't make any mistakes. Like that is very that does not create connection. That just really feeds into disconnection. And I really love what he said about feedback, which is you can ask people for feedback, but it's also okay to ask people for advice and
That's
be
right.
able to
I
say,
love
like,
that.
right, what do you think I could be doing better? Like, I would love to hear your advice. And he said, don't be hesitant to ask the ones who are the most critical, people who are critical, but you trust them. And, Brene would say, like, they're in the arena, like, not ones that are critical just for critical sake and they're not interested in helping you, but the ones who are interested in helping you because sometimes they could give you some, like, really direct, specific advice that
Yes.
you need to hear.
And they said like the difference was advice is forward looking.
Yeah,
And I I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I was like feedback advice, like what is the
yeah,
difference? And so, and I
yeah,
think a lot of leaders do get that wrong. Like, feedback is what we've already done,
yeah.
and advice is forward looking. I do want to hop in, and I know we were talking about Adam Grant, but you said mentioned psychological safety, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that I did talk to Dr. Misha Ann Martin,
Yes,
um, who is the vice president of people research.
yeah,
And we talked very specifically, and she said, and this kind of goes to what you were just saying,
Yeah.
leaders often posture up to what they think leadership should look like. And she emphasized the importance of authentic human interactions, regular check-ins, a genuine appreciation.
Yeah.
And Dr. Vicaria again said that psychological safety can be significantly enhanced through AI-driven analytics that identify and reward proactive safety behaviors.
Nice.
Um, because we finally started, I mean, Dr. Amy Edmondson, who's been doing, psychological safety, especially, forever at MIT and
Mm,
at Harvard,
mm,
um, for a while, but we were just starting to get into it. And it started to seem like everybody's like fully terrified now. So it was like good to hear, like, no, get all of that data, get all of those pieces, forget what you've learned. Let's look at what true leadership is. And that feedback, recognition, and critique is really going to play into that.
yeah. 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 Thank you for sharing that. She always does a brilliant research, and I love the way she aggregates it too and pulls so many amazing stories. The last thing I wanted to say from Adam, which I talk a lot about this with clients too, which is around confidence. And he talked about don't wait for confidence. Action is
Yeah.
what creates confidence, not the other way around. And
That was
it's
great.
right. We all need to hear that reminder. It's something that I remind myself sometimes. Like it's not something you can think yourself into. You have to act in it. And as you take the action, then you start to feel and I think sometimes we forget this with courage. So I'd
Yes.
like to re-emphasizing that piece.
I always have said, um, to people, like when you have imposter syndrome, that means you're actually remember that's a sign you're actually doing the work.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't have imposter syndrome and not
Yeah.
do the work. You know,
Exactly. It means you're
you
putting
can't say
yourself
I'm a
out there.
bad chef while
Yeah.
you're not cooking at all.
Yeah.
You only think you are when you make the soup. So you're actually doing it,
You're
right?
doing the
And it's
thing.
not that saying, yeah, you're
Yeah.
doing it means you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
You've
doing the
actually
work.
succeeded. So I was love. And he did say, do it scared.
Yep.
Progress is the ultimate factor. That was really great.
One last thing, I almost forgot about this one too, which I thought was super important because you and I were talking before we jumped on here around different generations in the workplace.
Yes.
And he said one of the things that they're noticing, and he was saying I think specifically with Gen Z or Alpha, I kind of
I
forget
get them
in
all
the next
confused.
generation, but
Right.
what he was saying is there's also a narrative around working harder. Like there's too much around that they have to have this strong work ethic and work hard, work hard, work hard, leading to burnout as opposed to working smarter. And that we have to be careful of the language that we're using because it's sometimes being misinterpreted. Because they're connecting to, well, high performance must equal burnouts. And he's
Right.
saying performance doesn't need to actually equal burnout because it's not this philosophy. And I talk a lot about this with Row, which is results only work environments that you could get what you need to get done in 4 hours. It's not that you have to work for 10 hours to get what you need to get done. It's about doing it in such a way that you're creating efficiencies.
That's
So
right.
I think that's a good reminder around how in some generations there could be a misinterpretation of what high performance looks like.
Yes. And I mean, I don't know. We have to get through this, y'all. We cannot
Yeah,
keep doing this to ourselves. I think that's just a really great point.
right, right. Okay, so tell me about your thoughts. I saw a couple of ones. I'm just going to quickly kind of highlight Hamza Khan. I'm not going to get into everything that he said, but I thought he did a brilliant job. He's actually from Toronto, so shout out. But he talked a lot about hope and making sure that we still keep hope front and center. Did a wonderful job. Um, DEI, for the DEI panel, what stood out for you with the DEI panel?
I didn't see the DEI panel, remember, because I had to leave
Oh,
early that time,
right, right,
right at the
right,
end.
right,
And it was
right.
so great. I just looked at the notes after that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no. So some interesting things that I'll highlight, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around it. Like for some of this, I'd love your discussion around, your thoughts around it. So one of the things that came up right away with the DEI landscape is we have to be conscious of even those words DEI, how there's been some
Yes.
disinformation narrative around that. and to remind us that what this really means is that DEI is about making things better for everyone, and that we just want to be able to level the playing fields. Some wonderful stats: 39% of there's a 39% growth to bottom line if you focus on DEI. That comes from McKinsey.
Wow.
39%. Okay, so we've got data to support this. And I really like this from one of the panel participants. He had said, we really need to make this about us and us, not us versus us.
That's right.
So we talked about that. Another thing that I really appreciated, one of the panelists said, is we need to stop the zero-sum game. It's not about that one person's losing and another person is winning.
That's right. And I'm glad that you said that because Kia, I did get to meet Kia before
Hmm.
the panel since that I knew that I was going to be leaving. So we did talk to him quite a bit about what was going on. And he
Yeah.
works for someone who, the Greater Good Science Center. I was like, how can I get a job there? Um,
Yeah.
and we were talking about that kind of work, and it said the same thing just in our conversation
Yeah.
about trying to make that shift, and trying to figure out that what we talked about earlier about not being a jerk when you're going through that.
Yeah.
He said, he was like, you know, I've been doing DEI work for over 25 years and trying to put people in these workshops and having this aha moments. And he was like, you can do that, but things don't change. And I feel like so many people wish that people just went in and all of a sudden like the clouds part and the sun comes out and like everything's great. But he was saying that same thing that you were talking about, and he also talks, if you get a chance to see him, again, Kia Afkari, he also talked a lot about the microcultures and about how you can try to do one thing for the overall culture, but it was really difficult for
Yeah.
these microcultures within departments and how DEIB works. I was like,
Yeah.
you work for the greater good. Like
Yeah.
I asked him, what is it like working for that organization? And
Yeah.
does he feel happy every day? He said he has to refer to his own notes some days.
I love it. I love it. I think he was one of the ones that said if he like what he would love to see in terms of the change in the world is he just wants to see more kind CEOs.
Yes.
I was like, you know what? Sometimes we can simplify, like it doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it out to be. Like, could we just have more kind CEOs? Yes.
Right.
Yes, please.
He
Yes, please.
was so great and talking about that. We got to talk twice as and he kept just saying that, really stressing about having these angry, bitter, jerk CEOs. And I think it's important because we go to Workhuman
Hmm.
and we talk about being more human, but as we can see from the greater culture, it just keeps perpetuating of having people like in order to be a leader, that's what a leader looks like.
Right.
And we have to change that narrative.
Exactly. Exactly. We have to really, really help people understand this is what conscious leadership looks like, and this is what empowered, emotionally intelligent leaders look like. And by the way, it always has a much better ROI for the bottom line. So there's that too. Um,
Right.
I'm just a believer in the humanity piece. I almost don't want to have to show you the numbers because I feel like it's the right thing to do, but it absolutely. And I've seen this with so many of the organizations I work with when I can really create a high performing senior executive team that are all showing up with kindness and being conscious of their choices and emotionally intelligent and doing repair when they make mistakes and being transparent and being strong communicators, how much it trickles down in the organization.
Well, and this was the thing that we talked about. Again, I was lucky enough to talk to the people on the panel and because I couldn't see the panel. But Kia was talking about working with an organization and somebody had worked there for 8 years and they gave an award and they broke down and they said, I didn't know anybody cared. They had worked at that organization for over 8 years. And I think it's important that we get back and discuss on what Workhuman does and why recognition is so important
Yeah,
because the numbers also show when you give somebody recognition, you will be able to work with them longer, and have those things when people know what's expected, they'll do better work,
yeah,
and feel feel good about their work, that'll help them do more. And, you know, it's just sad that there's so many people that aren't giving this recognition. And as you're talking, you have such impact on these leaders to remember, you know, I think sometimes you have to remember it's not all about you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what Workhuman is always is a good memory to share that. It's like, it's not all about you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's really important what you shared. And the fact that recognition moments don't have to just be leader doing it to direct reports, that peer to peer is incredible as well, right? To be hearing from your peers what you're doing really well and the impact that you're having. And nobody is, I've even heard people say like, "Oh, I don't really like to be in the spotlight." Recognition moments don't have to be something that some people don't like to be in the spotlight in the same way, but
That's
everyone
right.
wants to feel seen, heard, and valued.
That's right. I mean, I thought it was interesting this year at the hub, they were allowing you to give recognition to people outside who weren't at the
Yeah.
conference, even your
Yeah.
partner or spouse, your family, because we both talked about you 10 years and me 8 years,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that means that our families have been without us during that time.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and I think we joke about, I would say if somebody broke into my house, they would think that I would work at one of these companies, Workhuman
Right.
being one of
Yeah.
them, because
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
so much stuff from them, but
Yeah.
also being so grateful because it feels like everything they do there is intentional and we're able to share that with our families in that way. If you
Exactly.
haven't been to Workhuman, I feel like that is one of the things that is unique about the environment besides just the keynote, just the environment and facilitating togetherness and a sense of community without feeling like you're being forced into something weird. You are able to be
Yes.
yourself in those moments is
Yeah.
really great.
It's so true. I was talking to somebody around. I didn't realize how much, I mean, I know it every year, but I don't realize until I'm there how much I was craving community and
Yes,
how amazing it feels with, I think this year it's anywhere from 25 to 3,000. I'm not sure of the final number, but at least over 2,500.
yes,
How it feels that every person that you start having a conversation is your kind of person because it's all of
right.
these people who are so passionate about this work and so open to having dialogue and getting to know you and there's something to be said about being around that energy and reminds you what's possible in times where
Yes.
you're not necessarily feeling as hopeful because of some other very challenging things happening in the world. At least in this environment, you start to be thinking about, okay, but what impact can we have? And how can we all be working together and reminding ourselves when we leave this room? We're all doing really, really important, powerful work out there in the world. And sometimes we might forget.
And it was funny, kind of bouncing around, but going back to the opening keynote when he was like, it's the Woodstock of
Yes, a big part.
HR. And he was like, I've said that every year and
Yeah.
it works. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep using it till it works.
Yeah.
But it is feeling like that where this is like base camp for people that are trying to put the human back in human resources. Um, and also, what was interesting, and this is just something interesting, is that we usually, I mean, I'm not going to say that there's nothing going on, and so excuse me for saying it. It felt different because even in the last at least 5 years, it seemed like something happened like 5 minutes before the conference started.
Right.
Whether it was like Buffalo or George Floyd, the Me Too movement, it seems like every conference there
Hmm.
was something.
Yeah.
And I think we all know it's the global stage of what's going on. It's too big to just pick one.
Yes.
And we have to look at the technology.
Yes.
Um, but what was interesting in the way that they were able to present that, they had a section where you could get your headshot, but you also could go through the years starting in 1980 of what a desk looked like
Right.
and those cultures. And it was
Yeah.
wild, especially for people like us, because we've seen all those desks.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah.
interesting to go through technology and realize how far we've come and how
Right.
far we're going to be able to go,
It's so true.
and how things have changed.
It's so true. It's so true. You forget, right? Because you're kind of just in it and you're moving along and you're evolving. And then you look back and you're like, oh, wow, look how much we have experienced over the last 30 years in the workplace.
Well, I'd like
It's
to
fun.
ask you a question. I know it's your
Mm.
show, but I want to know what we talked about some of the similar things that we really appreciated.
Mm.
What stood out about this work human versus other work humans that you've gone to?
Yeah, like we were saying, for sure, the conversation around I think that is always is definitely more front and center. Um, what stood out for me is, again, and this is what Workhuman is known for, is the intentionality that goes into every single person that they decide to be on that stage, right? And I feel like it gives you a lot of diverse, different speakers depending on what's going on in your world and as an HR practitioner or whatever capacity, right? From a people and culture perspective, that there's
Mhm.
different tracks and things that you want to go deeper onto. And so for me, it was definitely interested in the AI pieces, but then also going back again to the leadership piece. Like ultimately, we also want to remember the humanity piece. And there were several speakers who spoke to the part around, listen, ultimately, you've got these workplaces with all of these humans and these leaders have such an impact on what happens. And I like when Trevor Noah talked about that too, when he said teams and how effective teams can be when they're working together and dealing with all of the ambiguity and uncertainty, but just knowing, you're pivoting, you're moving around, the goals might change, but you're all working really well together. And I liked how he said too, like sometimes it can feel like there's the team and then there's this leader outside of the team and he's like, no, the leader's in it, the leader's part of it, like
That's right.
all of them are working together, not the leader is a separate entity and then you've got the rest of the team. The leader is one of those players all coming together. And because I am so passionate about leadership development, to me it's continuing to hear that stuff and what does it
Yes.
look like through a lot of different ways to be those culture carriers, right? Because we all have heard that, like, where people say, like, oh, HR owns culture. Absolutely not. Like,
Right. Like,
no,
no.
a whole bunch of humans. But I am just such a believer with leaders, and if they show up in the way that they have the potential of showing up, the impact they can make, not just within their organizations. But of course, when you're having an impact on another human in that way and what you create there in that environment, that changes that person's trajectory in all elements, not just their career life, but their life as in everything, right? So I liked that when I was, and of course, those are the sessions I gravitate more towards because I'm so passionate about that. And I'm glad that that continues to be front and center. Like the humanity's not going anywhere. The importance of human skills are not going anywhere. We just need to integrate them with the AI.
I love that. And with me, I was refreshed. Like I said, it wasn't until after it was probably like 2020 that there was so much stress going on. And then in 2024, like just after that, or 2022, just relaxing as we were growing, as we were feeling relaxed, is what I really felt, that waiting to exhale moment. And
Yeah.
I felt the waiting to exhale moment with Eric Mosley, who, was do his opening keynote and has been at Workhuman for so long, when he was talking about leading with courage. And I think
Mm.
that's the leadership trait that I know you've talked to um, your people with, but that's the part that made me feel like I was in the right space. Like it's okay to be courage. That's what we're looking for in our
Yeah.
leaders. That's what we're going to have to drive forward, and moral courage and values, but lead with them consistently. And we heard that over and over about being brave and being tough and being courageous, that courageous leadership. And that was so much of taking the data and just being brave with it. And I feel like that is something that all leaders right now need to hear. Like that's what we're looking for. We're looking for leaders that can actually lead, not people that are just pushing pencils and being mean to everyone, but
Yeah.
people that can actually take that courage, whether it's because of DEI or AI, and trying to say, we're not going to do the wrong thing here. You have to step up and be courageous. And
Yeah.
if your company doesn't like it, be willing to say, I left because they were not willing to be courageous. And I'm looking for a place to be courageous,
Uh,
because people are looking for those people at their organizations. We have too many organizations that are led in fear right now,
yeah.
and we cannot grow if you're trying to lead through fear.
Yeah, I'm absolutely like, if anyone's watching, it's like I'm doing a big clap right now for
Yeah, again,
Jackie
snaps again.
because yes, we got the snaps happening. Absolutely. And I love that we heard that too around the moral courage too, right? Like there's times where like the right decision and staying in integrity,
Right,
it's not always the easy decision. It can be the more costly decision, but those employees will remember when you had to make those hard decisions and stay with you and be much more loyal. And it's also making me remember, as you were saying that, and there were a couple of sessions that addressed this, that you as the human as well, what are you continuing to do to take care of yourself through all of this? Because it's
yes,
not, I know there, a lot of people can get close to burnout and things that come along with that. And we need to be conscious of this. Dr. Tasha Eurich did a really good presentation. Oh, what was it called? Shatterproof. It was her new book, Shatterproof. And she was talking about from the resiliency, yeah, Shatterproof, um, around some of the myths around resiliency. And she's done a big, massive study to show the different things that need to happen. And she was through her own journey through chronic illness and advocating for herself she was forced into this place because she was someone who always relied on resilience. And then she got to the point that resilience didn't work anymore. And then she's like, okay, something's not working here. And great, I think it would be a wonderful book. So again, this will all be in the show notes, but a
right,
reminder as well that through all of this, right, like AI and all of these changes, and if anything is guaranteed, it's just constant change all the time.
yes,
And if you're going to be there to support both yourself, the people around you, the organization, it always starts with you. And I think that was a theme that I kept on hearing with multiple speakers as well, right? Like, I heard the oxygen mask, and we've heard that a lot,
over and over and over
right?
again.
But I think it's just reminding everyone that you just can't possibly show up the way you want to show up as your most resourceful self if you're not taking care of yourself. Like there's just not
Right,
you're not superwoman, you're not superman, you're not you just at some point something has to give. And here's my invitation to anybody listening. If you're not engaging in that, time to do that, because if not, your body will let you know that it's not working anymore. And I'd love for you not to get to that place and
right.
make this a practice and a commitment that you make to yourself, because it's not it's not a badge of honor. It's not a badge of honor, and it's not sustainable.
No, and it's pulling those things. And I was talking to someone who said, oh, they went to their doctor and I can't have stress. I was like,
No
where are you
stress.
going?
Where are you
Like,
going to
where
be? In
is
a
that place?
beautiful little cave out in the Himalayas where you talk to no human?
Right. I was like, what? Like my husband left the trash can lid up. It was over and my day was over. Like, how are you doing all of those things of being true to yourself? Start with yourself. And I
Yeah,
think that is
yeah,
that again, take that courageous values that we were talking about and
yeah,
that steady theme of the human, but treat yourself first. And I know we just have to. Okay, Kristen, you and I, we will come up the next time that you have me on. We
yeah.
need to work on
Yes,
having, we have to meet at least monthly with a different phrase from putting your oxygen mask on first.
yes,
We'll put it together. Maybe
yes,
that'll be our presentation or
yes,
we'll write a book,
yes.
but we have to find it because I hate it when people say it.
Yes, yes, we need something new. Absolutely. We
Yes.
need something new to get to the same
Yes.
point. We're getting close to wrapping up, but everyone, listen, there's so much to talk about, as you can see, because we are so energized, and that's why you've all heard me say it. I'm going to say it again. I invite you to join us all at Workhuman next year, but I don't want to leave without saying a couple of things around Trevor Noah.
Yes.
Because I
Oh,
personally I love Trevor Noah. He didn't disappoint. He is just so brilliant and so witty and so philosophical, and everything he says, I could just listen to him talk for hours.
yes.
And if I was going to summarize something about him personally, and he shared in this interview as well that he does really well, and I would encourage everybody. He's just a super, super curious person. He just shows up for a place of curiosity, constantly asks questions, and doesn't tame himself, doesn't try to keep himself, doesn't worry about how people might perceive. Because he was talking about in some rooms, you think about a new person starting a job, they have so many questions, but they feel like they have to be performative and I'm supposed to know it all and I will look unintelligent or I will look inexperienced if I ask the questions. And I love how he said the opposite. And he's actually doing some work with Microsoft. He's like the chief why officer or the chief question officer. I just love it. Um,
Right.
but it's something that I stress all of the time. And I think this is actually so connected to curiosity, because if I could say what I want more leaders to have, is courage and it's curiosity.
Yes.
Curiosity about others, curiosity about perspectives, curiosity about yourself. But he talked about more curiosity instead of fear.
Yes. Yes. And that is so important. I looked at some of the notes and seeing that it was so sad to miss him, but he's like, and also humor taking you through those difficult moments. I mean, like you said, I love Trevor Noah too. It's amazing. Like he is like a comedian's comedian, like, but so smart and has been through so much. And his
Yeah.
family, like, it's a miracle
Yeah.
that, I think some people are just walking, talking miracles because of everything that they've been through in their personal life.
Yes.
But if you can, I think it's so great on, be having that fun to get it through. But he also said, stop trying to be right and instead focus on being clear is
Yes.
one of the quotes that I saw. And that is going to be like my mantra at least till Friday because
Yes.
I'm not a perfect person. If I can get maybe let's change it to the end of the day. I'll let you know. You can put that in the show notes how that went.
Yes.
Baby steps, but we're
Yes.
going to celebrate all of them.
Yeah. And I think a nice place to end off from the AI perspective, because he did talk a little bit about AI, and he said he really thinks of AI in terms of three buckets. What AI can augment, everything AI will replace, and then everything AI will create. And how can we
Wow.
look at it from those different buckets and embrace it instead of resisting it?
Beautiful.
Um, Anybody who hasn't come to Workhuman, you have to join us because there's so much goodness like what we discussed today. And I know Jackye and I could like talk for 4 hours and get into
Right.
even more about everything that happened. But I will, there's a couple of other speakers that I really loved that we didn't get to today. And I will make sure in the show notes to include all of the books, because some really, really phenomenal books that give you an opportunity to dig more into it. And Jackye, as always, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. And I can't wait to see what we come up with instead of put the oxygen
Yes,
mask on yourself
yes,
first.
yes. And Jackye, let everybody know, where can they learn more about you and the work that you're doing in the world?
Yes. So I am on LinkedIn all the time. I spell my name funny for those who may not know me. I'm Jackye with a Y-E Clayton
Yeah,
everywhere. I'm at
yeah.
Jackye Clayton on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And I spend the majority of the time there. But on Thursdays, I do But First Coffee. So you can have a special session with me and John Baldino, and we put it on YouTube as well.
Nice, nice. And you also have another podcast.
Yes, Inclusive AF with
Yes,
Katie Van Horn.
yes,
And we've been doing that for like almost 3 years now. We just put up like episode 185.
yes. I mean, Jackye, anyone is who you start to get into her world, you're going to ask her how is there a number enough hours or minutes in the day for everything she's involved in, because she's very multi-passionate, and with a wonderful energy that you want to be around.
Thank you for saying that. I'm going to say that I'm multi-passionate,
You are
and
multi-passionate.
that's okay.
And yes, the world needs all of your multi-passion.
Yes.
For everybody, wherever you are in the world listening right now, we're saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and we're sending tons of love. Bye-bye.
Bye.